There are leaders in the world who are made for impact.
It's funny. My writing coach, I said to her, I want this book. I want it to be done, right? Like I've been working on it and I'm ready for it to be done. And she said something along the lines of, do you want it done fast or do you want the best quality book that you can write? And I said, both. And she said, no. And so it was a real lesson in patience and the creative process and just being comfortable in the messy middle, which is where so much of our life lives because we're always kind of in the messy middle in some area of our lives.
I'm Gretchen Schott, and this is Made for Impact, a show for leaders who want to leave a lasting impact on their organizations, their teams, and their lives.
My guest today is CEO and best-selling author Kate Volman. Kate has led Floyd Coaching the last 5 years and has helped thousands of leaders become their best self by implementing leadership development programs and coaching based on the best-selling book by Matthew Kelly, The Dream Manager. Kate has a rich background, not only in people development, but also marketing and entrepreneurship. Today, she's going to share with us some of her stories, her tips and insights on setting goals, increasing your influence, and prioritizing you as your best self. Take a listen. Okay, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here and so grateful that you asked. So thanks, Gretchen.
So I have been following you for a while and I know a little bit about your company, but in case I have listeners who have not heard of The Fabulous You, can you share a little bit about who you are and a little bit about Floyd Consulting? How did you come to be a part of all that?
Yeah, so I am Kate Volman. I am the CEO of Floyd Coaching. It's Floyd Coaching or Consulting, but we lean on Floyd Coaching more often than not. We are a Matthew Kelly founded company. So Matthew Kelly founded the organization and it is home of the Certified Dream Manager program. So based off Matthew Kelly's best-selling book, we certify dream managers that go into organizations to help their people fulfill their dreams, because our whole philosophy is that an organization can only be the best version of itself to the extent that its people are becoming better versions of themselves. We also do a lot of executive coaching, culture coaching, leadership training and development, and speaking. So we are in the culture space. We really help leaders build dynamic cultures. So people love coming to work and accomplishing great things together. I'm also the author of Do What You Love, which is my first book and a dream that I've had for a very long time to write my first book. And I have a podcast called Lead with Culture.
I love so many of the words that came out of your mouth right now. I want to talk about everything you just said. Anyone who knows me is probably like, oh my gosh, how are she and Kate not like best friends? Because
right? It all changes today.
Everything. I love it. Dreams, coaching, learning and development. It's amazing. I love all of it. Talk to me a little. So how did you get connected with Matthew and start Floyd? I'm familiar with Dream Manager. I was telling you before we got started, like I read the book years ago and I was challenged by my wonderful mentor, Kyle Defer, to actually write down 100 dreams. He had our whole team do it. So I'm very familiar with it. In case folks aren't familiar, read that book. But how did you get connected with Matthew and Floyd Coaching?
Yeah. So Matthew, this is what's wild about life, right? You just never know who you're going to meet. So like a lot of people who find us, I discovered The Dream Manager and I read it. And at the time, this is years ago, Gretchen, this is like 15 plus years ago. And I read the book. And while I was working at a chamber of commerce, and one of my roles was to do all the program development for the CEO level membership that we had. And so I reached out to Matthew and I said, oh my gosh, will you come speak to our trustees? And he was so kind, and the book had just come out. And so he was going out and speaking. And so he came in and spoke. And I just really, like a lot of people, I just fell in love with his content. I was like, oh my gosh, what he teaches, like we need this. And then he is off and running and, writing books. The man has written 37 books so far and counting.
Yes, put these ideas in your head and they just come out in this magic. You're like, oh, I needed that.
It's wild. It's just wild. So he, wrote these books and he has 5 kids and he's an entrepreneur. And so over the years, I stayed connected to him. I was just like watching him grow and watching him really build what he was building. And then I would always reach out to him and say things like, why are you not on YouTube doing more videos and on social media? Because at the time I went from the chamber to the community redevelopment agency as their marketing director in West Palm. And then I started a marketing company. So I really had a heart to help people get their message out online, Matthew being one of them, right? And so we stayed connected over the years. And then honestly, it's wild because one of the times that I reached out to him, his assistant reached back out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to have lunch with Matthew?" And I was like, "What? Do I want to have lunch with Matthew Kelly? Yes, I do." And honestly, I really thought that he was going to hire me to do his marketing because I was really reaching out to him, sharing with him ideas and things that I thought that he could do with his content. But no, Matthew had other plans for me. And so he offered me a really life-changing opportunity and one that I was quite honestly a little bit scared to take. You talk all about leadership and it's always interesting. Leaders, we so often we feel like we have to be ready. We can't be scared to take the leap on a new journey. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot say no. Like this is incredible." And so yeah, I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe that this was an opportunity that I was going to be able to, work alongside Matthew on this beautiful mission. I mean, look, he's dedicated his life to helping people become the best version of themselves in all of the things that he has done and created in the world. And so for me to get to be part of that in any way has just been such an incredible blessing. And I have been there for about 5.5 years now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love so many things about that because number one, like you just were staying in touch because you liked him, right? You're like, I think you're so cool. I want to help you. I think I have gifts, which is just beautiful. And the fact that you weren't expecting that and he just presents you with this opportunity and you had that moment of pause of like, oh, the impact I could make is different than I was thinking, right? Like he's bringing something to me. What a beautiful dream. I love that.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is that as leaders, we need to be encouraged to reach out to people and share with them what we see in them and share their superpowers and their gifts. Because from the outside looking in, when you have a superpower, it's so ingrained in you and it's just your natural ability. We don't see it as a true gift. And so when you get to do that for your people and you get to tell them what you see in them and what you believe they would be good at, that kind of pushes them to maybe take that leap, to take a different role or to step up and do a project or participate in something that maybe they might be a little bit scared to. I mean, that is really powerful.
Oh, I love that. And I think what that does too is it gives you that nudge for growth. And I saw you were talking somewhere the other day. I saw you talking about pouring into people and asking, what am I good at? Right. I think that was a tip that you had posted, putting that out on Facebook. What is something you think that I'm good at?
Oh, yeah. What is one word? You can ask your clients, your friends. I posted it on Facebook because, social media. And you ask people, what is one word that best describes me? What is that one word that you would use to describe me? And it's so fascinating what people will come up with. And you can also ask, how do you feel I add the most value? And that's another really great question. You can ask this of your leader. You can ask this of your team. I think it's really important for everyone to recognize, what do you think your value is? Sometimes you see things similarly, but sometimes the value that your team sees that you bring is different than what you think it is.
Absolutely. And I think that is sometimes what is an opportunity for us to go deep and become experts and become more influential even with that. I remember years ago, I asked a friend, I was really frustrated in my career and I didn't like where it was going. And I said to her over a lunch, I was like, what do you think that I do? What am I really good at? Because I don't feel like I'm really good at anything. And she said to me, well, you're very direct. She goes, I love that you're so direct. And that was a word that I had never used to describe myself ever. And this is probably 10, 12 years ago. Anyone who knows me now is like, how did you never embrace the word direct? Because I'm very direct. One of those things where I heard that and I was like, I took a moment and I thought, do I like that? Do I like hearing? I do. That feels good for me. And so then I made the decision to own that as one of my strengths and lean forward with that. If she had never said that to me, though, I probably would not have chose those words to describe myself,
Yeah.
When you posted that, what were some of the words that people shared with you that was surprising for you?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I shared that that exercise, but I had done it so long ago. And you'll always find the through line, right? A lot of people will say the same thing, and that is what I really appreciated. But a lot of people I get a lot of enthusiasm, energy, optimism. I get a lot of like cheerleader type, encourager, that kind of stuff, ambitious. So I got a lot of like those words. I'm sure there were some that really surprised me because there always are, because the way that people experience us is different, right? It's funny that you said direct because direct is a really wonderful superpower, yet most people can't handle people who are direct. We do appreciate people who can be direct, but at the same time, we kind of fear it because it can be, a little uncomfortable. It can sting a little when someone's direct.
Yes. And what I've been told, I think the reason I'm successful with that is because I'm also very, very loving. I'm very, very encouraging. That's like one of my gifts is being encouraging. And so when I am being direct with people, they recognize it's coming from a place of encouragement and love and support. And it's not for any other purpose besides that. So I think that it's received well in many cases.
I wish more people were direct. I feel like, can you imagine the world in business, in relationships, in dating, and in friendships, if we really were a little bit more direct in our communication? And that really just comes down on a leadership perspective with teams. It comes down to when you are direct with your team consistently and they're used to it, then you don't get the sting anymore, right? Like if you're being direct and you're able to have uncomfortable conversations, if you never have them, then yeah, when you do, they're very uncomfortable. But if you're open to them and you know that you can have those kinds of conversations regularly, then oh my gosh, it's so much easier to approach those situations on a regular basis.
Yeah. And I think there's a big piece of trust with that. Like, I think that you have to be trustworthy, you have to be trusted, and you have to be able to believe that even if you say the wrong thing, even if it's really direct and it's really true or whatever, that if you say it wrong, you will also be able to correct that relationship. You have to trust the relationship that you put into that. So I want to talk a little bit about your book because I've read your book. I was telling you before, I've read it and I've gone back to it a couple times. So what I love about the book is there's 7 myths that you talk about that really hold people back from being their creative and most best self. So give folks a little bit of a highlight because I don't want you to go through the whole book because I want them to go buy your book and read it. But give us a little highlight about some of those myths. And then I want you to also share which myth was the hardest for you to write about.
Ooh, okay. So I shared the 7 myths that stop people from pursuing their passions and dreams. And there are myths that we deal with throughout life, right? I even wrote in the book, when you read it, some of the myths are going to resonate with you more than others, right? And so, like, one of the myths is you need permission. And I see this a lot in people is that people have a dream that they want to pursue. Starting a podcast is a great example, right? A lot of people say, I want to start a podcast, but there's so many. And who am I to? And they're kind of waiting. Oh, if I were supposed to do a podcast, then someone's going to reach out to me and tell me or give me a platform. No, like that is not what happens in life. You have to write your own permission slip and say, this is my dream. I'm committed and I want to go with it. And so I see that often when it comes to people pursuing their dreams. Perfectionism, it has to be perfect. That's a myth. It has to be perfect. This one is really interesting because a lot of women, more so than men, actually, I don't know. I guess maybe everybody deals with it, but women will admit to it a lot more. I feel like we have those conversations more, but perfectionism really holds a lot of us back from pursuing our passions because we feel like we can't share something or start something, or like I was even saying in a role, I'm always fascinated when you see studies that show how women won't go after a specific role or project in the organization because they're still collecting skills and experiences and they feel like they aren't in a position yet that they could potentially take that role. Whereas men who are less qualified, they'll apply all day long for roles like that. But we're waiting for like, "Ooh, I have to wait till I feel like it's perfect, until my skill set is perfect." And that just doesn't happen. Probably the hardest chapter for me to write, which I thought was kind of interesting, it might be a tie. The perfectionism one, which is kind of ironic, was kind of hard to write. I thought that the last myth, which is inspiration will strike, that is a myth. Inspiration does not strike. We have to start creating and putting things into action in order for us to gain the momentum and the inspiration to keep going. But that chapter, surprisingly, it was my most fun myth because I love talking about muses. I love talking about how you have to start to gain the inspiration. It was really challenging for me to write. And maybe it's because it was my favorite and I wanted to get it just right. And also, I have heard from quite a few authors that the last chapter you write, just regardless of what it is usually the hardest chapter to write. I didn't know that before. But I don't know. But that was probably my hardest chapter to write. And yeah, for whatever reason, it was an interesting process. I mean, the whole writing process is interesting.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, gosh.
You said you talked about it, like, I'm not talking about like when you're dreaming of it, thinking about it, like when you're like, all right, I'm going to start writing. Like, how long did it take you to write it?
Well, okay, for those of you that are writing a book, hopefully I can help you feel better because it took a lot longer than I care to admit it did. And what happened was, and talk about I mean, I could talk about the creative process all day. And the creative process applies to everything, right? Building a business, your leadership journey, everything. And I remember, I think it was 2020 that I finally decided, hey, I'm going to put pen to paper and write this book. But I'll tell you what's crazy is I quote unquote wrote the book in a few months, I guess. However, it wasn't good. It was almost as though I think a lot of people have this idea of, oh, I'm going to sit down and write this book. And what we do is we have all these great ideas and we think we're just going to sit down and just put a bunch of great ideas together and it makes a book.
That's right. I'm going to look out at nature and it's just going to come. You're speaking my language. I'm going to write a book too. And it's going to happen. I'll turn on the right music and it'll just flow. Not happening.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really have the right outline. I didn't really have stories. In the book, I share a lot of stories and I didn't have any of that. It almost felt like a lot of blog posts put together. And, it wasn't good. And so fortunately, because I get to work with the most incredible human in Matthew Kelly, who he's sold over 50 million copies of books. It's crazy. And he's an incredible writer. And so I had a really wonderful conversation with him. I was like, I know this is a thing, but this isn't it. And then I started really studying incredible writers. He helped me kind of think through things a little differently, obviously having a lot of experience writing best-selling books. And then I also started really learning. I read On Writing by Stephen King, and I read Anne Lamont's book, Bird by Bird, and I watched Walter Mosley's masterclass, and I was obviously already a fan of Julia Cameron, and I was studying writers, and then I was also reading differently, and so from that, it really helped me. And then, because anytime we want to actually achieve a dream and a goal, we have to be held accountable to doing that and also get that support. So I did hire a coach. Like I hired a writing coach to help me not only hold accountable, but also to become a better writer. And so I did both those things. And then I was able to write the book. So all of that collectively probably took like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're writing a book out there, no worries if it's taking a little longer than you thought it should. It's funny. My writing coach, I said to her, I want this book. I want it to be done, right? Like I've been working on it and I'm ready for it to be done. And she said something along the lines of, do you want it done fast or do you want the best quality book that you can write? And I said, both. And she said, no. And so it was a real lesson in patience and the creative process and just being comfortable in the messy middle, which is where so much of our life lives because we're always kind of in the messy middle in some area of our lives.
Yes. For me, the myth that, which is so funny, the myth that I was like, oh man, that really speaks to me is your second myth, right? That you're not enough, which is ironic because I literally have done a keynote called You Are Enough.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And so I was like, oh man, like it's so good. And just like a little tip for anyone who's listening and wants to get her book. What I love too is that at the end of each chapter, you have like those creative practices, like tips to do things right now, very practical things that you can do like right now to overcome that myth and kind of like move forward. So I just think that's super, super helpful as people are thinking about trying to accomplish like their big dreams. Maybe their big dream is writing a book, or maybe their big dream is just to, have enough money to go buy a new car, right? Or whatever that might be. A lot of times when I'm talking with folks about goal setting, I actually refer to Dream Manager because I think that sometimes people struggle with the goals because they're thinking of work goals and personal goals. And how is my personal goal valuable to talk to my employer about? Like, how does that benefit the business? And I think sometimes managers, when you're not in a coaching culture, don't understand the value of why someone would have a personal goal and why I should care and why I should ask you, like, Oh, you want to lose 20 pounds? Great. So is it okay if I hold you accountable to that? Like, let's talk about that. Like, why would I bring that into the workplace? I'm curious, with the work that you're doing and have been doing the last couple of years, how would you blend those two things with work goals and personal goals and dreams and all of that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. First of all, I love the leaders that we work with because they truly get and understand that the only way for people to be successful and engaged and their best in the office is for them to be their best and fully engaged in their personal life, right? Like that is the only way. And so, why should we care about our people's dreams? Well, because how can we expect that they're going to show up at work excited to fulfill the mission of an organization if they're going home and they are completely disengaged in their own life? They're not excited about where they are going and they've lost touch of all of their dreams. And so, by helping them dream again, by helping them dream personally, you're going to help them grow. Now, that does so many things. You talked about trust already. Think about the level of trust and commitment that you're building with your team when they know that you care about them enough to support them in their dreams. Not just hitting the numbers, not just getting all the things done in the strategic plan, but more, oh, I care that this person is coming into work and they look off. What's going on with them? I need to find out, and having that conversation. And so with Dream Manager, what it does is it provides people an opportunity to now tap into their dreams in all different areas. So in the book, Matthew shares the 12 different areas of dreams. So we have dreams in materialistic. Sure, most people know material dreams and professional dreams and financial dreams. But what about your creative dreams, your psychological dreams, your intellectual dreams? Right? We have dreams in all of these different areas. And so that's what we do with Dream Manager. And not only are you now focused on developing your list of 100 dreams. So I love that your previous leader invited you to do that, because the first thing we do with our Dream Manager clients is we need to come up with your list of 100 dreams. And people think
So hard.
that I know. And, it's so funny because Matthew intentionally made it 100 dreams because it's supposed to be hard, because we have lost the power of dreaming because we don't do it. And so, yeah, 100 dreams seems a lot. Ask a kid to write down 100 things that they want. Oh, they're like, only 100? Meanwhile, we're like 100. But the point isn't even to get to the 100 dreams. The point is to stretch yourself to try to put as many dreams as you can. And so some people, they're like, I got to 75, so I have 25 more, but I'm going to get there. But when you think about it, if you look at all the 12 different areas of dreams and you did put 6 to 8 dreams under each of those buckets, right there, you'll have your list of 100 dreams. And then once you decide, okay, out of these 100 dreams, now I'm going to figure out we actually do this whole priority exercise where we take people through to help them decide now, what are the 4 dreams that you want to focus on this year? And then when you meet with your dream manager, not only are they holding you accountable to the activities you said you were going to do to start to achieve those dreams, but you're also engaging in conversations with them about all different areas of life. So we have one session is about your time and energy, one is about the genius of your personality, one is all about relationships and building deeper relationships with the people in your life. And so you're learning and growing not only in knowing and believing that you have the power to achieve your dreams, but also you're being fed lots of different content that really helps you become the best version of yourself. And we do that also through reading Matthew Kelly's book, The Rhythm of Life. So it's a beautiful program, and the impact that it has on people is unreal. I mean, the organizations that we work with, and when they say, oh my gosh, they have told us that they've had leaders that were planning on leaving the organization. And within after a couple months, they've come into the office and said, I was planning on leaving. I was so burnt out and I just felt like you guys didn't even care anymore. And now that I have a dream manager, forget it. I'm staying here. We've had organizations tell us that, they've done stay interviews, and over 55% of the people on the survey had said that one of the big reasons why they stayed in the organization is because of the dream manager program. Just the culture shift, right? Like people feeling more engaged, people talking, supporting each other. Right? It's and the dreams that people are achieving, they're not astronomical. They're things like buying a home, like you mentioned, buying a car. It's getting healthier and fit, losing weight, and then people get to celebrate the dreams that people are achieving. And nothing brings people together more than dreams. When you get to find out, oh, I didn't know that Gretchen also wanted to go visit Sedona, or that she loves music as much as I do. And it really connects people.
And what I've learned too, having read and practicing this idea of making dreams come true, becoming my best self, is when I share my dreams with other people, I'm always amazed at how many people then are now vested and wanting to help. I'd shared with a friend that one of my dreams is to go to Vatican City, meet the Pope, and have my family blessed by the Pope, right? Like, I would love that to happen. It has not happened yet. But when I shared that dream, the person that I was sharing that with said, oh, you know what? Like, I have some friends that work in Vatican City. Like, if you get there, like, let me know and I can probably get you an audience. And I was like, okay, like, that's amazing, right? And when people share with me like their goals and their dreams, I, of course, want to help. So I think that there's some beauty in that sharing of it too. Like, there's the process of really getting clear as to what are my dreams and knowing what that is and not thinking small. But then there's a lot that can be done when we share those things. But to that point of like people feeling small, if someone's listening to this, I would love, Kate, if you could give some guidance, tips on how people can help themselves think bigger, dream bigger, or how to take the idea of goal setting and layer that kind of with this dreaming. What are some tips you have for people for that?
Well, I think it's really important to meet people where they are. There's this idea of, oh, we have to dream big. We have to go above and beyond. It's like almost this culture we've created of, this is where I think feeds into that not enoughness that so many people feel. It's like, before we start to even think through like, hey, dream big, it's like, well, what are your dreams? Like, let's start simple. And sometimes people will push back and say, well, we actually get some people say, I don't have dreams, because they have forgotten that those simple things in life, those are dreams. Losing weight and buying a home, and maybe you do want to like upgrade your kitchen, or whatever those pieces are, or you want to learn a new skill. Those are all dreams. And because we've forgotten that, that's really the simplest step to take, is to really think about, hey, what do I want my life to look like 12 months from now? And what are some of those dreams that I see for myself? And we've got to write them down. Harvard Business Review has a study that shows that simply by writing things down, writing down your dreams and goals, you are 5 times more likely to accomplish those goals simply by writing them down. And so getting out a piece of paper, yes, an actual piece of paper and a pen, you can put it on your computer, but there's something about writing those things down that is now telling your brain, this is a dream that I have, and I can do something to influence that dream. So when we talk about people who are engaged and those that are disengaged, the two things that people that are engaged, what they have is they believe that the future can be bigger than their past, and they believe that they can do something to influence that bigger future. So we have to have dreams in our life to believe, hey, wherever you are today, no matter, maybe your life is amazing, awesome, you can still do more, but maybe you're not in a place where you feel like you're really good and you're in a state of transition, or you're not sure what your next move is going to be. Great. What are your dreams? What does the perfect role look like for you? What does that dream life look? Where do you want to be living? What do you want to be doing? Where do you want to travel? And it might not be immediate. And many of these dreams, look, it's a list of 100 dreams. They're not all going to happen in a year. Some of these dreams are going to be 5 years. And some of those dreams, I have dream lists from years ago, and I laugh because I look at some of them and I think, oh, wow, I've really achieved some of these. And then I look at some of them and I think, I don't even want that anymore, right? Because we grow and we evolve. And so I think that's really the first step, I would push anyone that's listening, create your list of 100 dreams. If that feels like too many, good. It should feel a little bit uncomfortable, and you can get those 12 areas of dreams to kind of help support you. And if you also need a little support, Gretchen already gave you the little trick, is to share your dreams with others and ask other people about their dreams, because every time you do it, you're going to be like, oh, wait a second, that's a great dream. I'm going to steal that dream. I'm going to put that on my list. And then all of a sudden you have that list of 100. And so that's really the first step.
Yeah, I love that. You've talked a lot about engagement too, as we get it back into as we think about work and the impact that we want to make at work. I often say that when people are both satisfied and loyal in an organization, it causes engagement. And the engagement is because of an investment in personal growth. And so if you're not invested in me, in my personal growth, then I might be satisfied in my job, but I might not be very loyal, right? Or I might be really loyal because you hired me, but I might not like what I'm doing anymore. And therefore I'm not going to be engaged, right? So it's that kind of the apex of both, of being both loyal and satisfied, that allows me to be engaged. And I think that a lot of that comes through my own personal growth and how that's fostered and encouraged. So
I really like that way of looking at it. It really does make sense. And it also, as you were saying that, it reminds me of how so many great leaders, they recognize talent and they want to keep talent. And so as someone grows and develops, sometimes that means they're going to leave the organization, and that's okay because not everyone is meant to be with you forever. And sometimes that means, oh, this person has really grown and developed. There is another role that they would excel at. And whether that role exists now or it's something that you could create for them, like that's what I find really wonderful, is that there are so many small business owners out there that they have really incredible talent and they have been able to transform somebody's role to fit not only that person's growth and needs and development of what they want in their future in that career, but it also feeds into the mission of the organization.
yeah. Kate, in your experience, how do people measure growth, like in personal growth?
Part of the Dream Manager program, we have this system called red, yellow, green. And Matthew, it's in the rhythm of life. So Matthew talks about it. It's almost like it's an assessment, right? In order to measure something, we have to assess it and decide where it is that we are. And so every time that a dream manager meets with their dreamer, one of the first things that they go through is that assessment. So red, yellow, green, where are you? And how are you feeling? And so every month, you're able to check, okay, green is I'm good, everything's wonderful. Yellow is like, hey, things are a little bit off. I need some kind of support here. And then red is like, oh, things aren't really that great in this area of life. And so we do that on 4 different levels: physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. And so you're able to figure out or assess every month that you're meeting with that person, where are you on that scale? So then after 12 months, oh my gosh, we get so excited when we see this. If you look at the full year, often, now it doesn't always happen this way, but let's just take someone who might have needed a lot more encouragement than somebody else. Like that person in the beginning, maybe the first couple months, there was a lot of yellows and a lot of reds, right? So like for the first few months, it's a lot of like, I need some support, and it's just things aren't going great. And then towards the last part of the year, maybe it starts month 6 or 7 or 8, 9, 10, you start to see there's a lot of green. There's a lot more green and yellows, or as a lot of our clients like to say, grellos, because they'll like, I'm yellow. No, I'm kind of tilting towards green, because that's another thing we see. We're very hard on ourselves. Most people are very hard on themselves. And so a lot of people will, even analyzing themselves, are like, well, I can't be green because I'm not like perfect. And I'm like, oh, here we go. So you get to really assess in whatever area of life that you really want to assess. Like that's when you know that you're growing. It's an internal assessment. But I really love that idea of red, yellow, green, because as long as we're kind of continuously in that grello green phase, then we know that we've grown in that area. Now, if there's an area that like has been red for a year, well, obviously there's the big challenge and you're not really growing. And then we have to decide, well, why is that happening? What am I doing that's not allowing myself to grow in those areas? And then, make some changes. But yeah, that's what I would really look at, is like really deciding every year, what are the dreams that you have? And then going back and looking at that list and like, well, what are the dreams that you were able to achieve? What are the skills? And I think as leaders, it's really important for us to decide not only the dreams that we have, it's also in part of your intellectual dreams. What are the skill sets that I want to develop? What are the things that I really want to improve and get better on? What are the things that I was able to improve this year that maybe I wasn't as great last year? And then how can I continue to improve on that? And then also, what are some other skills that I need in order to take my business to the next level, in order to take my team to the next level, in order to be a better coaching leader for my team so that the organization is going to grow? And so I think it's really important for us to identify what we really want to assess and measure so that we can really look back and see the growth that we've had.
Yeah. Kate, if someone wanted to work with you and partner with you, whether that be through the Dream Manager program or they want to have you come and talk more about your book, what is it? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Either go to thedreammanager.com and that takes them right over to the Dream Manager. You'll be able to talk to someone on my team. And then you can find me all on social media and at katevolman.com.
And what types of businesses do you most desire to work with? Like, what's your ideal client to work with?
Oh, well, it's so awesome because the Dream Manager is every organization. We work in every industry, every organization, all different sizes. The Dream Manager is a fable written about a janitorial company. So we have quite a few cleaning companies, janitorial, HVAC, a lot of food manufacturing. We also work with a bank. We work with nonprofits. We work with a trucking company. We work with, mortgage brokers. We work with every and all industries, which is a beautiful thing. And I always say, our best fit client is a scaling organization that's focused on culture. They probably have 25 plus employees and their leader cares about their people. Those are the people that we work best with. A lot of times people will say, hey, you really need to work with XYZ. And they talk about some toxic culture company that they know of. And they said, how do you convince someone that they need to create a good culture? And I always laugh and I say, that's just not my job. We put work out into the world and the right people are going to find it. And so I hope that those people find the right word and words of inspiration that's going to really support them. But we get to work with really wonderful people that already know that culture is incredibly important. They believe in their people. They believe in the value of their people and they want to make an impact and grow their people. Those are the people that we work with. We're really more excited to work with those people than we are, convincing someone, because you just shouldn't have to convince someone that treating people is the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's the treating people part that I think that we miss. It's treating people in ways that encourage and inspire them to want to make an impact on the world as a result of being a part of your business, right?
Yes. What a gift that you can give people. That's a gift to give people.
Yeah. A lot of people would say, well, we care about our people. Our people are our number one asset. We can't do our business without our people, but they're not actually caring for their people either. They're not caring about their people in ways in which they care for their people. So, Kate, it's been so wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much. I feel like I could literally talk to you for like another hour, but I know I've already taken up so much of your time. So I'll just have to have you come back and we'll talk about other things.
Oh my gosh, Gretchen, you're so awesome. And thank you for the work that you do. It's so incredibly important. And I really just value how you view leadership and the way that you talk about it. And you share about leadership in a way that I think is very easily accessible to every type of leader in its simplicity, but also in its thought-provoking nature. So it really lends itself nicely to anyone who is a new leader, someone in a new role, and also more advanced leadership. And so I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Kate. Oh my goodness. I love her so much. She had so many good ideas, such great energy. I could have talked to her for at least another hour. We'll definitely have to have her back. But I want to leave you with a lesson from Kate's book that I think is really relevant to this idea of setting goals and prioritizing and being your best self. In her book, she says, identify 3 activities you're doing because you think you should, not because you actually want to. Make a plan to eliminate the activities that you do that do not serve you. I love that. And so in addition to coming up with that set of 100 goals, I invite you to take this challenge and come up with those activities that you're doing that you think you should that probably aren't serving you anymore. Do that in the next 24 hours, maybe in the next week. Do that 100 list of goals or 100 dreams. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, be sure to check that out. Go to www.grow3fold.com/made-for-impact and sign up for that newsletter. If you found this episode helpful, I would love it if you would share your thoughts with me. Maybe share some of your dreams. Maybe share with me how many dreams you came up with. And if you loved it, share it with others, anyone that would benefit from it. I'd greatly appreciate it. In the meantime, remember, you are made for impact.